Hello and welcome into Betting Life's pregame college football betting show. I am your host, Thor Nystrom, joined today by the coach, Gene Clemons. Eric Froton and Mike Bainbridge are out, but Gene and I will be taking you through the games over the next 90 minutes, which includes Army-Navy, it includes the Celebration Bowl and the bowl game later tonight, and then all the bowl games through Friday. So we have a lot to get to. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can ask questions in the chat. Just type them beneath our faces. Please click the like for us if you would as well. And we're going to get to all the player props and everything like that. So we have 90 minutes to hop into this. Gene, you ready to get going?
Yeah, I'm definitely ready to get going. I'm loaded up. The notebook is open. Really looking forward to the games today. We already had a really great dominant butt kicking from last night in the FCS playoffs. The Montana State Bobcats look absolutely phenomenal. Idaho didn't do themselves any favor. Head coach, Coach Eck looked like he was already in New Mexico right now hanging out. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today with the FCS, the Celebration Bowl. I'm excited about that, but really can't wait to start talking Army-Navy because as anybody who's watched this show knows, it is the gift that keeps on giving, the Service Academy stimulus package, and it'll be given today as well.
Yeah, we're just going to call this the Gene Bowl. So we'll kick off for this stimulus package bowl. Gene, of course, was so good betting on the Service Academies all season long. It was like you weren't missing on those. So hopefully we can give out some winners in this game. Let's get right into it, Gene. Army is favored today by 6 points against Navy. It's an interesting game. Right. I mean, like this thing's a little bit different than in the past where the Bulls have already been announced. Army just finished, outside of potentially getting that G5 spot in the playoff. Obviously, Boise ended up freezing everybody else out, but Army coming off a great season. But this game, it's situated in this weird way where it's between the conference championship game and then the bowl games and sort of doesn't mean anything. I mean, to the players, assuredly it does, and certainly the fans. But it's an interesting handicap from a motivation perspective. Gene, with Army laying 6 and both of these teams playing much better this season, how do you think this game goes? How do you think these teams match up against each other?
Well, I think the one thing that we figured out, right, is the quarterback position matters in these styles of offense even more than your traditional or what's become your traditional college or pro style offenses.
Navy couldn't move the ball when Horvath got hurt.
When Horvath was done, when Horvath was out, it was bad. Yeah. And when Bryson Daly was out, the offense definitely took a step back. Now I think they had someone in place that was just a little bit further along. Their defense was a little bit better that day, but you can see the difference. And throughout history, if you look at when Army or Air Force or Navy, whenever they're at their best, it's because they have an elite level guy operating that thing at quarterback. And so my first question today is, how healthy is Blake Horvath, right? Like, because if Blake Horvath is 75%, if it's a situation where he can't be as dynamic as he was at the beginning of the year through the first half of the year when people thought that he was a Heisman candidate, if he can't do that, they've got zero chance of beating Army. I personally don't think they have a chance of beating Army already, with the exception that Army-Navy is so special that you throw the records out the window when those two get together. I don't know about you, but I was really rooting for Army and Navy to run the gauntlet and end up in the AAC championship game so that they played back-to-back weeks just to see how that would play out. I thought that would have been phenomenal.
Yes, that would have been sweet.
Yeah, so I mean, I look at this game and I say this comes down to defense. In my opinion, Army has the much better defense. They have the ability to shut down whatever it is you're doing because they play an aggressive style of bend but don't break. I know that might sound contradictory, but they're much more aggressive than you see your normal keep everything in front of them defenses, but they are 100% trying to not allow you to get the explosives, right? Make you grind it out, make you matriculate the ball down the field, wait for you to make the critical error and then pounce on it. I think that's the difference in this game. It is why I believe Army is going to win and why I don't think it's actually going to be that close if everything plays out.
I'm with you on this one, Gene. My system's line on this game is Army minus 8.9 points. And, and it being 6 right now in the market, showing a little bit of line value on that. And as long as the motivation on both sides is close, I'll put it this way, as long as Army shows up and they want to win, from what we've seen of both these two teams this season, I think that Army is more than 6 points better than Navy. Now it's like famous last words because, you recall this game so often in your memory in the past, and the underdogs typically have a shot to win it outright. It's typically a very closely played game. So typically I would want to be on the underdog, but you mentioned like Horvath banged up down the stretch. We saw what the offense looked like without him. So if he plays, gets knocked out, you're down to that. And then on the Army side, that team's just super legit. And I like the point that you made about that, you think a lot about the offenses with these teams. The biggest discrepancy, I think, in this game is Army's defense against Navy's defense. And of course, you're going to trust Army's defense quite a bit more. So because of all those reasons, I have to lay the 6. Again, like Army could come in and not care, but it's the Army-Navy game. So typically
it's impossible. Yeah.
I mean, like you're going to get the effort in it. And the Army team that we have seen in the previous 13 games, that is a good team when it's giving effort. So barring that, I'm going to lay the 6 happily with that. Gene, our next game here, I'm going to kick it to you with the Celebration Bowl. The one thing that I wanted to toss out as context for this, I don't cap DFCS, so what do I know? But this was one where a couple, in the middle of the week, I was prepping for the episode I did on Thursday with Claudia, where we did the Bull Confidence Pool, and ESPN tosses this game in on the Bull Confidence Pool. And I thought it was interesting that at that time, Jackson State was a 1.5 favorite, but it was something like 86 or 87% of the picks were on Jackson State, which even though the spread's telling you it's a coin flip, I imagine that was some sort of residual from Coach Prime and the public, having awareness of Jackson State. But as we sit here now, so on the show, I picked South Carolina State just to be on the other side on what I thought was a coin flip for the game theory. But now we have this line we are at, depending on the book you look at it, it looks like it's more or less consensus. South Carolina State -3. So this line is flipped 4.5 points over the last 3 days or so. Do you agree with that line movement, Gene? And who do you like in this game?
Yeah, so I think what has happened, what's happened in this situation is Jackson State is the more popular team, right? Jackson State, if you look at the home game attendance totals, Jackson State's at number 1 in the FCS every single year. It's not even close, right? Like they draw. They were drawing better even before Coach Prime got there. But when Coach Prime hit, and then that you get that spotlight shown on you, everything elevated. Their fan base is an older, loyal fan base. They've been in the game. So I think, and then you have the people who follow HBCU football exclusively, and they've seen Jackson State more in the last few weeks than they've seen South Carolina State. South Carolina State wrapped up the MEAC championship. They don't play a championship game. They don't have any rivalry games like the big, we're going to set this alone as its own entity kind of rivalry games, similar to Army Navy. The SWAC is full of them. So you had Jackson State playing teams. At the end, you had Southern University playing Grambling in what is essentially like their version of Army Navy. And then they had to go and play in the SWAC championship. So you've seen a lot more of Jackson State than you have of South Carolina State. And because of that, I think it has skewed what people or how people look at Jackson State compared to South Carolina State. They believe that the SWAC is better. But what I have noticed is that all of the competition and the kind of the cannibalization of each other within the conference, when the SWAC championship gets to the Celebration Bowl, yeah, they've had more games, they may have more experience, but they're just a little bit more worn down. Remember, Jackson State only gets a week to prepare for the Celebration Bowl. South Carolina State has been thinking about Jackson State for 3 weeks now. That makes a big difference. And so when I'm looking at this game now, and what I believe happened was the early money came in from the fans, and the early money was saying Jackson State, and now when you're starting to get people that come in that know South Carolina State has a whip. My pick in this game is South Carolina State. I hope that when the line pops off closer to noon, that I'm getting plus money with South Carolina State, because that's going to allow me to then juice it up and get even more money out of it. I think South Carolina State has the better quarterback. I think South Carolina State has the better receiving core. They have the ability to beat you through the air at a level that Jackson State has not seen this year, except from maybe Florida A&M. And Florida A&M isn't as complete of a team as this South Carolina State team is. What also matters to me is when you look at the rosters, South Carolina State is full of a bunch of grown men. There's a bunch of transfers from D2 schools that have a chip on their shoulder, that they've been waiting for this moment to like show what they can do on a bigger scale. They're being doubted out here by people who say, oh, well, this is a Division II coach and he brought in a bunch of Division II talent to come to this Division I team, and they're hungry, and they have been beating up on really good teams for the better part of 2.5 months. So I think South Carolina State goes into the Celebration Bowl well prepared. Chinnisberry, one of the best coaches in all of football, not just in HBCUs. They're going to go in with the HBCU plus player of the year in Eric Phoenix, who is, in my opinion, this year has been the best player in all of HBCU and one of the best players in the FCS. I just think this is a bad matchup for Jackson State, and in the end, it rolls out with South Carolina State claiming the Celebration Bowl victory.
Eric River Phoenix, Gene. I'm gonna toss you the puns even without Froton.
I like it.
Well, I love that you're on South Carolina State, because it means that I feel better about my pick. Going in blind there. So yeah, good times on that. And then we'll move to the FBS bowl game today. We have the two that got the Celebration Bowl and the Salute to Veterans Bowl today. South Alabama and Western Michigan in Crampton, in the Crampton Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. Gene, the line on this one right now live, South Alabama, I think, is -9, -9.5. We are moved 9. Yeah, there's one book, DraftKings, where it's 9.5, but South Alabama, the decided favorite in this one. Through these games, I'm gonna toss out the injuries and the opt-out news, at least that we have now. Obviously, in bowl season, the opt-outs have become like crazy important for these different handicaps. So on the South Alabama side, it looks like they're going to be without one of their platoon backs in Fluff Bothwell, who hit the transfer portal. Him and Bullock were platoon backs back there in their backfield. I will return to Bullock in a second, because this goes into one of my bets. Then one of the South Alabama starting cornerbacks, Jordan Scruggs, is also in the portal. Gio Lopez, need to get an update on him. He was banged up at the end of the season. We've basically been waiting on news of his status update. And then they had a starting guard, too, that in the last game was banged up. That's on the South Alabama side. Lopez is listed as questionable. We'll see Bishop Davenport if he doesn't go. And then on the Western Michigan side, by far their best pass catcher, which is their tight end, Blake Bosma, has opted out of this game. And then two of their starting defensive linemen, Corey Walker and Antario Thompson, Walker is an edge defender and a really good run defender. And then Antonio Thompson they have this 3-man defensive line rotation, and he's the third one that goes in, but all three of them basically get the same amount of snaps. Thompson's not as good, but Walker is one of their best defenders. It might even be their best defender. And for me, the Western Michigan ones are a little bit troubling, the opt-outs, because Bosma is super important to their passing game, super duper important. And then Walker being one of the best defenders, if not the best defender on what is a bad defense. That's my concern for Western Michigan in this game. South Alabama can get going and they start running at the hyper tempo. And if Gio Lopez can play against a bad defense, you can start to see South Alabama pile up points really, really quickly. Gene, how do you see this game?
Yeah, I don't feel good about giving any team 9+ points in bowl games when you really don't know what their motivation is for winning or losing. Like these early bowl games, some coaches treat it like it's like I'm here to win and I'm here to like kick off my next season, and then some they treat it like it's an award, like it's a reward, like this. Hey, we're here to have fun and soak up the experience and whatever. And when that happens, you get like kind of this uneven play. But what I will say is the style of play is not going to change. So South Alabama, they're going to like run up and down the field. It's going to be a track meet regardless. Whether Gio's there, doesn't matter. Whomever's there, they're going to play the way they play. They get it done through the air a lot better than Western Michigan can combat people getting it done through the air. They have backs that can run the ball. Like I think that they have more ways to put the ball in the end zone than Western Michigan, but their tempo and their defense means that if it's not clicking on a consistent basis, they're going to give it back to Western Michigan, and they're going to give it to them in some pretty advantageous positions. So for me, I look at the over-under in this game, and I locked it in earlier in the week at 58.5. I think that's my play on this. I like the over in this game because I think in bowl games like this is where you start to see the ridiculous amounts of stats get put up, where teams are throwing for something ridiculous or running for something ridiculous, and the score is 40-something to 30-something because defense is optional, right? And we came to see the offense. And a lot of times when people say we want to see how these guys are going to play, they're really talking about the offensive guys. They want to see how they're going to play. Most guys aren't saying, hey, I want to see our defense pitch a shutout in this innocuous bowl game at the beginning of the bowl season. So I tend to lean towards the offense in this, and I think that this game has overwritten all over it. -9 is a little too much for me to be laying on the side with two teams that have a lot of unknown to it. But the over, I definitely would go with that.
So my system's line in this game is South Alabama -11. I agree with the line movement that we have had, and I would lay it with South Alabama. The only trepidation-ish is the Gio Lopez status.
Mm-hmm.
If Gio plays, I love that bet. He is still a game-time decision from what I'm seeing. He did, however, was this 3 days ago? He did the thing where he put out the Leo gif in Wolf of Wall Street where I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving.
I'm not leaving. I thought that there was a real shot that Gio Lopez would go to the Power 4 in the transfer portal, but he's staying. Will he be good enough to play? That's what we had to see, but would certainly lean South Alabama. I just think they're going to put up points in this game. It is a big downgrade to Bishop Davenport, and so maybe if you're out there thinking about betting this game and betting this side, maybe you want to wait until you get news on that, but that would be the side I'm on. The two bets that I like more than that, because the status of Lopez isn't sort of hanging there, is two different rushing props in this game. I like the Kentrell Bullock over on rushing, where I got it was 82.5. I heard it opened in the 70s. I was devastated that I hadn't seen it earlier, but wherever I'll check where this thing is live.
I'm looking right now on there too.
I'm seeing 85.5 and 86.5. I'd still bet it
86.5.
Yeah, I mean you're starting to get closer to the mark, but I'd still bet it there. because Western Michigan's defense is a travesty. And again, they just lost their best defender, who happens to be an edge-shedding, really good run defender, and then one of their rotational defensive linemen, who again is not as good. But you go from him, and now you have to – guys who haven't played all year need to assume those snaps. Western Michigan is SP+. Their defense is ranked 120th out of 134 teams in the nation. And then the run defensive metrics really bad for Western Michigan as well. And again, having watched South Alabama this year, the first year with Major Applewhite there in charge of that offense, when it's the good defense that can address their run game and they can sort of muck up some of the passing efficiency, that's where you can throw a wrench into South Alabama. But when they have played those rancid Sun Belt defenses, especially especially they can't stop the run, because it'll be like, Bothwell for 7 or Bullock for 7, who's ever in, they'll sprint back to the line. Now they're going the other way with it. Now they're going to do a play action bootleg with Lopez because he can run around. Sometimes they'll do the RPO stuff and then Lopez is going one way. It's really hard for the defense, especially a defensive front that already stunk like Western Michigan's and is now not only not as good, but doesn't have the depth to stay on that track with them the whole time, right? It's because it's just run the whole game long. And if you can't stop them from getting to the sticks, they're just going to nick you all the way down the field and sprint back to the line. So that's where I sort of lose it on the Western Michigan side and why I like South Alabama. Going over on Bullock, who is going to get all the carries here because Bothwell is not playing. Whereas during the season, which are what some of these numbers were based on, or at least, where it started at, he was in that timeshare. The other one, now the Bullock one, you could, like, right now, it's probably in a realistic-ish range, the price of it. This other one, I don't understand this price. So maybe this means I'm stepping into but I really don't get it. Jaden Nixon for Western Michigan, their running back, listed at 61.5 rushing yards, which is where I got it earlier this week. And I just went and checked it because I'm like, assuredly they have taken this thing down. They have not. It is still up as far as I can see on the bet, our betting tools where you pull it down, the prop bet finder on FantasyLife on MG. Let's see. Yeah, MGM it's 61.5. FanDuel it's 56.5. Anyway, the under. Western Michigan. So there's a couple different reasons for this. The biggest one though is Western Michigan has a 3-back rotation. You care to guess where Jaden Nixon has been on the pecking order of those 3 the last 3-4 games?
Third.
A decided third. The kid's getting 10% of the snaps, or 12, right? I mean, he does come in, but the rotation there changed. Where earlier this season, Nixon had a bit bigger of a timeshare, and it's just changed for him here. The wind blew a different way, and all of a sudden they wanted to get the other 2 guys more. But Nixon, you look at, this is just a stunning number that I'm sure that the books are about to take this down with us talking about it. Last 3 games. You ready for this, Gene?
Uh-huh.
So these are all MAC competition. Okay. So it's Bowling Green, Jaden Nixon, 7 carries for 22 yards. Okay. 40 yards short. Hold on to your hat because that's by far the most rushing yards he had in the last 3 games. The next one, Central Michigan, 6 carries for 9 yards in that one for Mr. Nixon. That was a 2-point loss for WMU. And then the one before that with Bowling Green, they did get blown out, but it was the one where he got the most carries. Probably indicative that he's now running a distant third, get the garbage time. Last game against Eastern Michigan, your more conventional 26-18 win, right? A 1-possession win. 3 carries, Gene, for -4 yards for Mr. Jaden Nixon. He is not a crook, but we're going to feel like crooks going in there and stealing money from the books on this one. I don't know who's asleep at the wheel.
Listen, I can tell you it's not on Prize Picks. It's not on Prize Picks. So if you can find it, you better put that in immediately right now. Somebody
at Prize Picks deserves a promotion for not just blind grabbing that one. The 2 books it's at for folks out there, it's MGM is the 61.5 -115 on the under. I'm guessing it's not going to be available for long. and at FanDuel, that's where it's 56.5 minus 114 to the under. Well, I still do that. In fact, you could cut that thing in half and I still go under. I wish you could. We talk about, Gene, the ladders to heaven.
Yes.
This one we dig to the Earth's core.
I'm about to say, can you just drill to the core?
We're gonna drill to the core of the earth with Jaden Nixon.
Just take it down. Just take it all the way down.
See if he can get over 1 yard this time. It just is what it is. I'm sorry to Jaden Nixon and his parents if they're out there watching the episode today, but yeah, he has fallen behind in the timeshare there. The last game against EMU, it's this kid Zahir Abdus Salam. That is the guy who's like pulled up here in that rotation. Then Jalen William F. Buckley Jr. is the other one. So anyway, sorry, we're going under on Nixon. Gene, our next one. Oh, and for the audience out there, we have a couple more games to get to as we sort of roll through here, and then we'll get to your questions here in just a bit. But yeah, we're rolling through all the bowl games on Friday.
Thor, before we get on, did you have any Army Navy props that you like?
In that one, I didn't, just because I was wondering about the Horvath thing. Gene, I'll toss it to you. I mean, Daly 63.5 passing yards. I'm seeing on Underdog they pulled down the 124.5. But yeah, I didn't have any. I didn't have any plays on that. The Udo, last week.
Udo, anytime touchdown from Udo seems to be one that I really like. And then the Bryson Daly 2+ rushing touchdowns. I like that one as well. I think both of those have a great chance to hit. Also like Army over 2.5 touchdowns versus Navy today. Like there's some interesting props out here that I'm just like, I don't know if people have been watching, but this Army offense is good and this defense is advantageous. So go ahead.
No, I was looking at someone was whirring by my window. I have a pond back there and it's ice hockey rink now. They're out there playing hockey right now. We're built different up here, Gene.
No, it's a beautiful thing.
I might lace up the skates and get out there.
I was about to say you probably have your skates and stick right there waiting to go.
I'll do the rest of the show. I'll hook the camera up and it'll be like a GoPro. We'll be slapping the puck and we'll be giving out picks too.
Pucks and picks.
I like that, Gene.
I like
last week we saw some big mistakes the books made with the props, especially on the Army side in that AAC title game. Bryson Daly was being offered over a half of a rushing touchdown that you could toss into tickets on Underdog. I think it was like the times 0.65. So obviously not as much, but it was literally a lot.
It was easy money. Yeah.
It was Bryson Daly gets more than 2 every single game. And by the way, on one of the books, it was plus money to go over 1.5 rushing touchdowns, which that has been automatic. Now they have corrected that to be a 0.8 to go over 1.5. On Underdog. So at least they've accurately done that. And then Udo last week against a defense that he matched up well against, was it 40.5, Gene, or 41.5? This week 69.5. So obviously go up a little bit. But yeah, I didn't like the numbers as much on that one. But definitely on the props of that South Alabama, Western Michigan. I got one in our next one too, Gene. We're moving now to Tuesday, December 17th. The Frisco Bowl in Frisco, Texas. In Frisco, Texas, baby. Memphis and West Virginia. This line has moved all the way to we have some love in the market for Memphis in this game, up to 4.5 point favorite here. Gene, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, it's interesting because West Virginia without their head guy anymore. We know what the future holds, which is
Rich Rod. Oh, and Gene, I forgot. I'm
Rich
sorry.
Rod back. Yeah,
I'm sorry. I forgot to go through the opt-out. So let me do that just really quick. The Memphis side. I don't know that there's any big ones. At least right now, Mario Anderson was the one I was kind of keeping an eye on that potentially could. Although if I was him, I'd probably just play in the thing. West Virginia, they're the ones that have more and injuries. A starting wide receiver, Traylon Ray. And then from in the middle of the season, and Ray's out for the year, a couple guys in their secondary, which is one of the reasons why West Virginia's secondary is so rancid. Like, it was already bad, and then they've lost multiple starters for the season to injury and made it even worse. Aiden Garnes, starting cornerback, and Aubrey Burks, starting safety, and then their top linebacker, Josiah Trotter, hit the transfer portal. And Gene, of course, the huge news there, which you were just getting into before I rudely interrupted you, Rich Rodriguez coming in because, of course, West Virginia fired Neil Brown after they were annihilated in the finale by Texas Tech. Looked like a team that had quit. Gene, you're right after that. Do you think this team, there's the Rich Rod coming in, do you think there's like a renewed energy there? And for the interim staff, they're going to go out and they're going to play hard? Or do you think it's the thing of like, we came on the last game, we didn't appear to have a pulse against Texas Tech. We weren't fighting really hard for Coach Brown. Brown gets fired. And now it's like we're playing for the substitute teacher before a lot of us are going to leave in the portal. Which one do you think that is? And how does that inform the way you see this game?
So first, let me just say, I love Rich Rodriguez.
Rich Rod, baby. Virginia. Yes.
Like, I love him back to West Virginia. The thing that I always go back to, and excuse me while I go off on a little tangent, is Michigan fans acting as if Rich Rodriguez was a failure in Michigan. Like, is the biggest crock of mess I've ever heard. He went in there, he had to change everything about everything that they did. And right when he was ready to get it popping, they fired him and let Brady Hoke come in and cosplay as Rich Rodriguez for the next 2.5 years before he started to run it into the ground. I think Michigan, you people really messed up on that.
And Gene,
something special there.
Gene, by the way, to that point, it's like a sliding doors kind of hit. There's so many things with Rich Rod. You could go before this to the Alabama thing. If he had taken the Alabama job, where does Saban go? Who gets built up as it? You could do it that way. But even after he took that Michigan job, the huge mega recruit that he was going to build his entire program around.
If he gets Terrell Pryor,
game
over.
Terrell Pryor was built in a friggin' lab to play quarterback for Rich Rodriguez. It was so perfect. It was right there. And Terrell Pryor ends up flipping to
Ohio State. Ohio State's money, like they won out. Ohio State, everybody knows Ohio State was in the NIL business long before NIL was around.
They played the game
now. We can just say it now. It's okay.
They played the game. But now if that had happened now, I think Larry Ellison's coming in there and Dave Portnoy are coming in there with their checkbooks. And
they're dropping the hammer.
I think if that's today, I think Terrell Pryor is playing for Michigan.
Yes, and if so, by year 2 of Terrell Pryor in that Rich Rodriguez system, I think they win a national championship.
They would have been going buck wild.
Like, I think it's that big of a difference. It's one of those what ifs that if we were able to play like the Disney series or the Marvel series that they had with the what if with the MCU, like I feel like if someone would have done like a Michigan what if, that would be a phenomenal what if to do, because Terrell Pryor was special as a college football quarterback, even at Ohio State, in an offense that didn't fit him at all. Like, it just was like a square peg and a round hole going forward. I digress. I apologize to everyone. Rich Rodriguez back to West Virginia is a great thing for West Virginia, but it won't be a great thing for West Virginia in this bowl game because the coaches are all trying to find jobs, right? Yeah. Those coaches are all trying to find jobs. It's more than likely that Rich Rod is coming in with his whole staff or with whomever he wants to bring in back to West Virginia. So those guys are trying to find jobs. Those players who may or may not fit a system that Rich Rod wants to run over there in West Virginia, they're all trying to find homes. They're all trying to figure out if they're going to be there or not next year. So with all that uncertainty in a bowl game that means absolutely nothing in Frisco, Texas, where they're going to go down there and see a lot of the things that you get to see in Texas that you never get to see in West Virginia, like, it's not going to be focused on trying to win. Meanwhile, Memphis has something to play for because they're trying to take this season in this top 25 ranking and flip that over into the start of a 2025 where they can possibly be the next Boise State. So that's how all of these group of 5 teams are looking at the end of the year. how do we position ourselves to be the next Boise State? I think Memphis will be focused. I think West Virginia is just there for the ride. I think this ends up being a blowout for Memphis.
So I'm on a couple different props here. I'm going to start out with those, and they're both on the Memphis side. Gene, as you know, Froton and I, we've been going nuts about this West Virginia defense. We love to prop handicap the funnel defenses in college where it's, against the run or the pass. One is like one of the worst in the nation, and then the other one's like decent, and you get like this funnel thing where every offensive staff is just mercilessly attacking the Achilles heel on the other side. And West Virginia has one of the bigger funnel defenses that we have in the country, because their run defense is a little bit above average. It's decent. It's solid. It's okay. The pass defense is horrid. It's an absolute horror show. Their pass defense stunk again before they lost 2 starters in the secondary in addition, and it's gotten even worse. Everybody throws on West Virginia. And then the games that West Virginia wins, if the other team is passing, they need to win in a shootout. It's just the way that it goes. So because of that, I'm going over on Seth Hennigan's passing. The Memphis quarterback, 255.5. I saw right now on Underdog, it's actually 254.5. You didn't even get a better price than I did. And then the other one I did was Mario Anderson under 110.5 rushing yards, which that one I'm seeing 109.5. So we're both pretty close on those. Again, so West Virginia, the constitution of that defense, West Virginia's run defense, number 51 success rate, number 54 in yards per successful rush allowed. The pass defense, so again, a little bit above average. The West Virginia pass defense, 129th out of 134 in success rate, 128th in both yards per dropback and EPA per dropback. It's literally one of the worst pass defenses in America. So Memphis is going to be able to do whatever it wants through the air. And then on the Anderson side, you have the couple different things there. I mean, if West Virginia is more competitive in this game, maybe there's more throwing at the end. I think there's already going to be more throwing for Memphis in the neutral game script. And then you also have the thing of, if Mario Anderson does play, he's the biggest opt-out possibility on the Memphis side. And sometimes we get those right before the game. But if he does play, we have this new concept, and Froton loves this thing with bowl season, where it's not the opt-out. And I'll give Froton, this is Froton's term. He'll kill me if I don't say that. The soft out, where the kid comes and plays like I'm going to play. Yeah, I'm going to go out on top with the team. And then he goes and he plays like one drive, or he plays one quarter. Sometimes they play a full half. Malachi Corley ticked me off because last year he did this in the WKU bowl game. But we see this every year now. The past couple, you could see a soft out with Mario Anderson as well, and would not have a good opportunity to go over 110 if he only plays in a little bit of the game. And so those are my two with that. My play on this game, with this thing up to 4.5, I put in a play on West Virginia. I think West Virginia's run defense, again, I think that it can at least prevent Mario Anderson from going ballistic if Mario Anderson indeed plays in this entire game. And if he doesn't, of course, it would be even more so. I do expect Memphis to get their air yards against that bad West Virginia pass defense, but I think they're going to be a little bit more one-handed, or a little bit more predictable as far as that goes. I think West Virginia, when they're on offense, they can stay a little bit more multiple. And I think that they can rip off some explosive runs that Memphis gives up as well. So for those reasons, I'm going to take the points in that one. Okay. Moving to the next day on Wednesday, Gene, we have the Boca Raton Bowl, James Madison and Western Kentucky. James Madison, live in the market right now, is up to a 9.5 point favorite. This thing is getting closer to 10 as we sit here. The opt-out news in this one, Western Kentucky, and we've seen this the last couple years. I remember last year it got all confusing with the opt-outs because they have a bunch of guys that entered the portal, and then last year a bunch of the guys ended up playing. We'll see on that. They're going to need several of these guys to play because they have like half their starting lineups in the portal. So here's all the starting lineup that's in the portal. Quarterback Caden Velkamp, wide receiver Easton Messer, starting linebacker Darius Thomas, starting defensive end Deontay McCray, starting nose tackle Dallas Walker, the other starting defensive tackle Hosea Wheeler, starting safety DeMarco Williams, and their kicker. And then they had 3 different starters that are injured, that have injury concerns heading into this game. On the James Madison side, they don't have the guys in the portal that Western. And again, I'll make the caveat: Western Kentucky, a bunch of the guys that were in their portal last year, they ended up playing in the bowl game. So that's, it's not just that they're going to be out all these guys. On the James Madison side, they're going to have to play their QB2 again because Barnett is hurt, the starting quarterback. And then one of their starting linebackers, Jacob Dobbs, is injured as well. Gene, with this line moving near 10, but us having some uncertainty about exactly what that Western Kentucky roster is going to look like, who we're going to have active, who we're not going to have active. Who do you like in this game?
I mean, it's impossible to lay money or to take anything with Western Kentucky right now, right? So this becomes, do you think James Madison has an ability to beat this team even if they're at full strength, right? So if I think James Madison can beat Western Kentucky at full strength, then I like the 9.5 because there's a better than likely chance that even if the Western Kentucky people play, how locked in are they for real if they're out here trying to shop themselves to other teams? This is portal season. This is portal season right now. It's bowl season, but it's portal season. So, like, these players are out here trying to find homes. They've already decided they don't want to be at Western Kentucky. So how hard do you play? How much do you put yourself at risk? Like, all of these things matter. And so if I think James Madison can beat Western Kentucky at full strength, then I definitely like them at 9.5. The problem is, at full strength, Western Kentucky versus James Madison is an absolute coin flip for me. Like, I think either team could come out on the top of that. If everybody was at full strength, that's how I say Froton. Thor, like, where do you have this game at if everybody's at full strength?
My line where, and this is a tough one. This is a gambling philosophy thing, whatnot. But like with these games, when you know the opt out, I will reflect the opt out. Or if you know that a guy's going to be injured, that will be reflective in my line. Mm-hmm. A situation like Western Kentucky is really difficult because we don't know the guys that are going to be out, right? Like, we're going to get to game day and there's, what I'm guessing is that most of those guys will end up playing, but there's going to be a few that don't. And we don't know which ones those are. They need Veldkamp to be one of them. Again, last year, Veldkamp played in this game, even though he was in the transfer portal or in their bowl game. And it turned out that was much needed because Tyson Helton had started the Clay's son, I believe is what it was, the Helton kid. And oh my God, it was like the worst quarterback I had ever seen in the FBS. I think he threw like interceptions on like the first 3 drives. So they had to bring in Veldkamp, and then Veldkamp off the bench like lit it up, and then ended up coming back. But TJ Finley is in the transfer portal as well. So if it wasn't I don't think Helton's on the roster anymore, but maybe Helton can find someone else in the family tree to toss out there if not. But Gene, that's why this makes it hard without knowing in advance. But my line on it was 8.3. Just sort of ballpark in it, a couple of these dudes are going to be out, but Veldkamp will play, but we got to deduct him for a couple of the starters hypothetically being out. So that's where I ended on it.
Yeah. So if you're saying 8.3 right now, then to me, like if I believe that James Madison is that good, even if Veldkamp is out there, then to me, like, this is a no-brainer. I'm going with the team that's going to be more locked in, the team that seems to want to be there to try to win the game, and is not looking for what their next opportunity is going to be. It's a new world when we're trying to decide and trying to cap these games, but all of this stuff comes into play. These are human beings. These are young men who are trying to make what is equating now to business decisions, right? Like, not just, hey, I want to play for a different school because I've always wanted to play at a different level. But no, I want to go over here because over here is where money's at. And I get an opportunity to make that money. And so when all of these things come into play, I just wonder how hard you could play for a team that you're not going to play for next year when you're trying to keep yourself healthy for whatever team you're trying to attract in 2025. I'll go James Madison on that one.
I lean towards James Madison. I don't love the Heltons and bowl games. I'll get more into that in a second when we talk about the Georgia Southern game. But then the other thing is, I faded Western Kentucky each of their last 2 games, both times against Jacksonville State. And my reasoning was because Western Kentucky has one of the worst run defenses in America. James Madison is going to exploit that. It just is what it is. And the rest of it, we'll have to see how many dudes that they have active. But James Madison's going to run all over Western Kentucky in this game. So hopefully Veldkamp and Messer are both active for Western Kentucky, because they're going to have to return fire in this one. But yeah, on the James Madison side, you're not seeing the same amount of players entering the transfer portal. Moving into the second year with Chesney, seems like everyone's sort of content there. So that's the way that I would lean on that game. Gene, the next one we're moving to, and everyone out there in the audience, we got this the last game we're going to talk about, and then we'll hit your questions in the chat. So if you're watching us on YouTube, hit us up in the chat if you have any question. We're going to open the mailbag here in a second. But Gene, before we do, quickly, UNLV and Cal in the LA Bowl in SoFi Stadium in Inglewood. This is another game that is on Wednesday, right? Yep. We have line on this one. We got Cal -2, Cal -1.5, somewhere like that in the market right now. UNLV, they have the coaching turnover right now. Their coach Barry Odom was hired by Purdue to take over for the deposed Ryan Walters, who only got to the end of his second year. And then the UNLV ended up hiring Dan Mullen. It seemed like Brennan Marion, the offensive coordinator from UNLV, was not thrilled with that decision. Brennan Marion scrubbed his socials of all references to UNLV in the interim between the time Odom left and then the time that Mullen was hired. So we had a pretty good idea that Barry Odom wasn't going to be named the next, or Brennan Marion wasn't going to be named the next head coach, which, by the way, I think is a mistake. I would have named Marion the head coach. I don't actually know if Marion is going to be involved in this game. His status is still sort of up in the air. You have some of these open head coaching jobs. I'm sure what the deal is that Odom has the standing invitation for him at Purdue. Evaluate your options. I know that Dan Mullen wants him back at UNLV as well. But anyhow, whole point being, it's a little bit up in the air on the UNLV side. On the Cal side, and Del Alexander, the wide receiver coach, for whatever it's worth, named interim head coach, feels like a slap in the face to Marion as well. Although we don't know if Marion was offered this, but then told, we're not going to consider you for full-time coach. So then Marion's like, then I don't want to do it. Well, we don't know. But anyway, on the Cal side of this thing, from Fernando Mendoza, their starting quarterback, has entered the portal. I don't know if he's signed yet, but I heard that he was making googly eyes with Indiana. So it's kind of interesting to think about the Latin lover for Fernando Mendoza taking over for Rourke potentially there, Indiana next year. That's the big one on the Cal side. Their starting left tackle as well, though, will not play in this game. Looks like they're going to get their starting right guard's going to be full strength. They also have a left guard who's questionable. Cal's offensive line has been terrible all year, and it suffered through injuries all year, and it's still not 100%. It's a bad offensive line. It's one of the reasons that they had to make their whole offense the quick hitting passing thing this year, because they had to work around the offensive line. It was hard to run between the tackles and whatnot. So that's on their side. It looks like UNLV, outside of Tony Grimes, starting cornerback, that they're more or less intact outside of that coaching staff. Gene, with all that being said, do you want to lay the 1.5 with Cal, or do you like the short underdog UNLV running Rebs this one?
Yeah, I'll take the money line on the Rebs here. I think ultimately, whether Marion is there or not, the offense is still going to be the offense. I don't see any of those other UNLV offensive players opting out. If Hajj Malik Williams is playing, then the best player on the field is on the field, and they have some things to prove, because they did not bring their best foot forward in the Mountain West Championship game. I think that got to them. I think the weather got to them. The pressure got to them. Whatever you want to say, that won't be a problem in LA, baby. It'll be nice in LA, and so you'll get an opportunity to see the Rebels running at full capacity in this game. And I think that team, at full strength or at almost full strength, in an environment that is conducive to offensive play, will be able to run the ball well, will be able to play through the passing game, off of the run. I think you'll see Hajj Malik Williams have a field day against this Cal Golden Bear defense that is, I mean, not that great, right? It's not that great. I think this is a great opportunity for UNLV to jumpstart their 2025. I think it was a horrible decision not just automatically naming Brendan Marion the head coach. I also think that it's really weird that all of these jobs have come open and you don't hear Brendan Marion's name being boundied about. And if I was Marion, I would be ticked off too. Yo, I left Texas to come here because I wanted a chance to be a coordinator and I was trying to move up the ladder. Now I've taken your team to new heights with my offense that's unique, that everyone around the country keeps stealing elements from, and yet I still can't get a head coaching job. That seems very weird to me, and probably a topic for another show at another date. But regardless of whether Marion's there or not, I think that this offense is intact. They know how to run their what they want to do. I think there'll be too much for Cal.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Brendan Marion, and it's only in part because we used to be DM and text buddies. Now Coach Marion might be a little bit too big for me now to be exchanging the text with him, but coming up, got to know him a little bit, and this is a guy who invented an offense. I mean, like, how many coaches out there have invented an offense? And he did so at a young age, the go-go offense.
Yeah.
And it has some revolutionary concepts in there. Like, before him, you didn't really see the out of the shotgun and the two running backs lined up on the one side, or even ubiquitously playing two running backs on the field at one time with the quarterback. And then all the interesting things he does with misdirection in the run game, and then their running tempo. I got to see an offense that has some similar, definitely not the same, but like the Kansas offense with Andy Kotelnicki, there's some similar things with the sort of hide the ball, like where which direction is it going? And it's just really hard to get a beat on that. And both those guys are really good at setting up their offensive lines to get the advantageous angles because of that, like all the different eye candy and the angle stuff. I wonder if there was the Sluka thing this fall, and Sluka seemed to sort of be whatever consternation he had about how that thing went down and getting promised something that he said didn't come through. It seems like Brendan Marion was the guy that he was sort of, I don't want to say implicating because there was never anything signed, but like that had promised that. And you don't know behind the scenes what happened there. Like, was it, we just literally have no idea. I mean, Brendan Marion in that situation might've been told, we have $100,000 for the kid. You can tell him that. And then for whatever reason, it changed behind closed doors after that, we have no idea. But like, I can't really think of another reason. I like Dan Mullen. I'm not saying that Dan Mullen's a bad hire, but I absolutely think that Brendan Marion deserved an opportunity there. And I hope that he gets one of these like really nice. P4.
I do not want to see him in Purdue. I'm just going to be honest. I don't want to see him go to Purdue. Although I feel as if
it'd be a good offense.
Yeah, I feel as if he could get his offense popping at Purdue, Barry Odom's going to get all of the credit, and then he's going to flip that Purdue job into a better job, and Brendan Marion will still be sitting at the same position he was before. I would rather him go somewhere where even if it's not going to give him an opportunity to elevate for whatever reason, he is just so well compensated that it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. Yeah. So we'll wait to see on that. As far as this game, my system's line on this is UNLV minus 0.8 points. This is a tough one. You sort of go back and forth on it because it is just the coin flip. I mean, based on, whichever way that you end up looking at it, I think I just have the slightest leans towards Cal in this one. You have the coaching staff is still there. Obviously, it's like one side or the other. It's like, do you prefer to have the team that needs to start their backup quarterback, or you prefer the team that has the coaching, thing with the coaches leaving and some of the coaches upset and a new staff coming in? It's really close, but that Cal team, I've liked it this season. They were banged up throughout the fall. They have gotten a little bit healthier down the stretch. So I'll go with Justin Wilcox's boys to finish off this sort of resurgence season with the win. Let's open up the mailbox for the first time today. Appreciate everyone out there for watching, for heading in and hanging out with us this morning. Gene, we got a question from our buddy Mike Huseman, who asks us, FCS quarterfinal, South Dakota is -5.5 hosting UC Davis. Which side do you like there?
Actually, I had to, and again, shout out to everyone that listens. Make sure you go to the bet tracker. Go and check out our best bets on FantasyLife. You can see everything that we like. You can see them before the line start moving. You can see them when we got them. So you can see if the line moves, the value you might actually be getting a better value than what we were able to lock it in at when we locked it in there. So definitely go over there, check it out. If you're watching on a computer or something, take your phone, hit that QR code that's on the screen right now, and definitely go over there. This is interesting because South Dakota, to me, has made one of those leaps to say, hey, we can be talked about in the same conversation as the Bit Boys. I say that, and UC Davis has made a very similar leap. Like, UC Davis has been really, really good this year. And so I think about UC Davis staring down Montana State in Bozeman and coming up a point short, and I'm going, man, that is a fantastic loss. If you can ever have a really great loss, that was a really great loss. I like UC Davis when UC Davis was able to get it done versus Idaho, which is a really good team, regardless of what they showed last night. South Dakota, we've seen what they've done. I think this is going to be a rock fight. I think this is going to be who has the football at the end of the game, field goal type of thing. So 5.5 points for me. UC Davis won't be bothered by the weather because South Dakota plays inside. UC Davis won't be bothered by the crowd because South Dakota only draws like 8,000-9,000 to most games. Even in playoff games, they're not out here drawing in 15, 20, 30,000. I actually don't think their stadium can hold that much. So with the opportunity to go into or to go on the road and play a team that's not going to be a decided home advantage, I'll take the points and I'll take my chances with UC Davis in a game that I could totally see South Dakota winning by 3 points.
Our friend Historical Anomalies asks us, might not be the right show for this, but how do you think Belichick will do at the college level? We'll hit it.
Yeah,
I think it's going to work. You see these people out there, they're like mocking it or not taking it seriously or think it's stupid or like whatever. I think this is going to work. And the thing that he is laying out, Belichick, with this idea of like running the college program like an NFL organization, we have seen this in the recent past, actually. And I think we have a pretty good recent historical precedent, like to look back on this. And that's the Herm Edwards era at Arizona State. Herm Edwards, they took him out of the television booth. He hadn't coached in college in 25, 30 years. And he said, we're going to run Arizona State like an NFL organization. And now he ended up getting fired for the recruiting indiscretions. But the what he was talking about with the scouting and the development, or the identification of prospects, and then going out and getting them and then bringing them into NFL style nutrition, weightlifting, training, etc. He ended up getting that roster really, really good. Jaden, I'm trying to,
and he produced some pros. He produced a bunch of pros.
So this is 2021. Herm Edwards was the coach. I think it was his last season. But listen to this roster. This is only 3 years ago. Jaden Daniels at quarterback, Rashad White running back, wide receivers Johnny Wilson, draft pick, Ricky Pearsall, first-round draft pick, Elijah Badger will be drafted this spring. Jalen Conyers at tight end. He's going to play in the NFL. They had 3 different offensive linemen that play in the NFL, a couple different defensive linemen that do, a couple linebackers that do, Jack Jones, Chase Lucas, NFL cornerbacks. I think that this is going to work. And they just brought in Michael Lombardi, the former Browns general manager, a guy that I'm friendly with, thanks, Michael, for having me on your VSIN shows. But he's going to come and be the general manager. Then they're going to flesh out sort of this scouting department. And that's how they're going to do, sort of the beginning work of their recruiting and identification of these guys. Bill Belichick, he's not going to get involved with this in the same way that Herm Edwards wasn't out there watching film of 3 stars in Tempe or whatever, right? Like that is the scouting department. And then where Belichick moves the needle, it's the same area where Coach Prime moves the needle in this thing. Coach Prime, they maligned him for not going out on in-home visits. Well, his whole stance is I got work to do here. If they want to come and play here, this is where the games are being played. I'll meet with them here. It's going to be the same thing with Belichick. He's just going to sit in his office and do his thing, and you can be watching the film and whatnot. They're going to bring the recruits to him and the families to him, and they're going to want to come and talk. That father is going to want to come and talk to Coach Bill Belichick, and Belichick's going to turn into a rocking tour for an hour with the mom, the dad, the kid, and he's going to make people want to play at UNC, I think, in that hour. So that's where I'm at with it. I think it's going to work. What do you think, Gene?
You alluded to it, and I think that not enough people are giving him his flowers for this. This is the Coach Prime model he's putting in place.
Yep.
He's putting the coach. He said, "Oh, if Dion can do this," and Dion came in and immediately said, "Hey, we want this to run like an NFL. We are getting people ready for the NFL, so we want our program to run like an NFL program. We want NFL guys in place. We want NFL coordinators or people who have NFL experience coaching. We want them to have that same level of game planning and evaluation and the ability to make adjustments." Here's where I think people are not giving Bill Belichick enough credit. Where was the genius of Bill Belichick during the time in New England? It wasn't the drafting. It was the free agents, finding people who had talents that they could utilize in their offense, in their defense, on their special teams, guys that they could evaluate who've played at that level, being able to then bring them in and ingratiate them into what they want to do. I don't think Bill Belichick in North Carolina gives a darn about these freshmen. I will almost be willing to bet that they will have the least amount of true freshmen on their roster of anybody in college football. They're going to go and they're going to scour the video and look at all of these college players and find the college players that make sense for their program, bring them in as free agents, let them get their run, and then send them off. Like, I don't think this is a situation where he has to be able to like woo anybody. This is going to be a business. They're running like a business. And because college football has gone to a business model with the NILs and everything that they're doing, it works out perfectly for him. He doesn't have to go and do the song and dance in the home anymore, because he's going out and making business decisions for these young men that are coming to play for him. I think it's going to be a great hire. I think when they announced it, I said, just put North Carolina down for whatever the win total over is next year right now. Like, as soon as it drops, just take the over for it, because I think it'll probably end up being at 6.5, right? 6.5, 7, most likely.
I would think.
I'll take the over. He's going to be able to go out there, and because he has an ability to scheme and operate, he's going to scheme up some of these coaches who just don't understand how to scheme at this level.
For sure. Yeah. And I think you make an interesting point about, the approaching the NIL and how you do that. We don't see enough. We've seen some, but not enough inspired sort of Moneyball machinations in that NIL process with different athletic departments. Like, this is, in this game, you're just trying to make the best roster every year. And I feel like we're just at the start of this thing. There is a better wheel for how to go about that. And, the thing of, if you can find the sort of under-identified, under the radar type players that will, for instance, play well in your scheme, whether that's at the FCS, whether that's at D2, whatever it is, whether it's from a different Power 4, but they were stuck behind a better player. But they can, however it is, the more you can do that, the more money that you can pool for your couple big spending type things. Yep. And there's been a lot of rumors the last 48 hours about Quinn Ewers potentially being available out there. Would he go to Oregon? If he does that, then Dante Moore would then have to find a new place. Could North Carolina get involved? But there's going to be a lot of intriguing guys out there. It'll be interesting to see where they go with it. Did they go with sort of the stars and scrubs model of we're putting the bigger chunk of our NIL into a smaller group of players, but they'll be better, and we trust our scouting with the other guys, or how they go about that? But I'm fascinated, and like I said, I think it works. Gene, we got 4 more games left to get through here in the next 20 minutes. I think we can do it. We'll start off here with Georgia Southern and Sam Houston. Georgia Southern is a 6-point favorite in the market. That might let me check the live on that, because that one was going up earlier this week.
And then obviously
it is 6.
Yeah, obviously with Sam Houston in the news about their head guy moving on. Definitely going to be some changes there.
Yeah, so you have Casey Keeler going to Temple at the head coach, former head coach at Sam Houston. That one was surprising. That seemed at best like a lateral job, but we have seen some dudes win at Temple in the past. Matt Rule and Al Golden, and et cetera. There, Brad Cornelson, their offensive coordinator, is going to be the interim coach for this one for Sam Houston. They have Sam Houston has some guys in the portal, but they already have multiple of them that have come out and said they'll play. So this could be similar to that WKU situation last year that I was talking about. But Jay Ducker, they're starting running backs in the portal. The 2 guys that have already stated they'll play, Simeon Evans, starting wide receiver, and a starting safety, Isaiah Cash. The other starting safety, Caleb Weaver, is in the portal, and then 3 other starting defenders, and then a series of backups as well. So there's been indications that several of these dudes are going to play. Some of them have explicitly come out and said, but you never know up until we get up to kickoff. So that's sort of what's up in the air with them. On the Georgia Southern side, they're cleaner, as far as that goes. Not as many that I had seen. Their backup quarterback, Dexter Williams, in the portal. Gene, with all this being said, with Georgia Southern a 6-point favorite in this one against Sam Houston, who do you like in this bowl game?
Yeah, it's tough because Sam Houston plays a brand of football that's actually surprising, right? If anyone knows anything about Casey Keeler and what he's been able to do over his career, even dating back to his days at Delaware, like it was a wide open offense. And when he took over Sam Houston, from at the time, I believe Willie Fritz was there, and then Willie Fritz went to Georgia Southern, which is hilarious. Went to from Sam Houston to Georgia Southern. It was a high flying, like, put up a bunch of points. And the year that they won the FCS championship game over South Dakota State, they did it with offense. They did it with a quarterback who could run and throw the ball, some really talented, speedy receivers. And then they made the quick jump to FBS and almost redshirted the entire team so that they wouldn't lose a year while they were transitioning from FCS to FBS. I've never seen it before. But like, there are some guys on that Sam Houston team that are still there from the championship team that won it during the spring season when everybody was dealing with COVID back in 2020 and 2021. The thing I find interesting is that Casey Keeler made it seem as if Sam Houston was his last job. Like, he had found the place that gave him the redemption that he was looking for. He was able to take that FCS team to a FBS team. They're in a place where you should be able to recruit at because, they're right in Houston, right by Houston. So it was really interesting to see him take the Temple job, but he does have a lot of Delaware ties that gets him closer to back to home. The problem I have in this game is Georgia Southern is like the most difficult to predict how they're going to play team on a week in and week out basis. They just don't seem to have any rhyme or reason to when they will be or will not be locked in defensively. And so I look at this and go, the style of play that Sam Houston used to play, which was wide open, has been replaced by a kind of like thudding, like just grind you out type of philosophy where they're just trying to outlast you, right? Like it's a battle of attrition and they're trying to outlast you. That's not a recipe for success most times for Georgia Southern, but there are the questions about Sam Houston and who's going to play and who's not going to play and what their thought process is going to be right now. So that makes it interesting. Georgia Southern opened as a -4. It's up to -6. I think you said right now 6.5 in some places. Yeah. I still feel a little uncomfortable laying 6 points with Georgia Southern versus this style of play from Sam Houston. So if I'm going off that, I'm probably going to lean Sam Houston in this game. I definitely like the under in this game from a standpoint of Georgia Southern sometimes forgets how to play offense. Sam Houston trying to keep the numbers low. If you look at their last 6 games, the last 6 games of the year, none of those games have come close to 48.5 points. None of them have even gone over 40 points. It took them overtime to get over 40 points in that Kennesaw State game. So I really like the under in this game. If I'm picking a side, I'm probably taking the 6 points with Sam Houston.
Yeah, so some of these other games I've had leans. This one is definitely an official play, and it is on Sam Houston. I really like Sam Houston here. And again, you have to give the caveat of all their guys that are in the portal. And I don't want to discount that. But again, multiple of them have already said that they're going to play. There's been an idea expressed that most, if not all of them, will end up playing. But the bigger thing here is, and Gene, you hit on it with the way that Sam Houston has constructed their offense this year. It is this power concept where it's just grinding. They're trying to grind efficiency. So it's just run. They use the quarterback's legs. They have a cornucopia of running backs in this platoon that come in off the bench, and it's just run. And then they're it's not the tempo thing like with Rich Rod, but they're more methodical, and then they set their defense up in a good spot. But it's like they're not X's and O's-ing you to death. They're trying to out execute you and then play the clock better is basically what it comes down to. That is a really good matchup. They match up well, I think, against Georgia Southern. A couple different reasons. The one that is on the field is because Georgia Southern has a stinky run defense. You can shut out the lights on Sam Houston. You can merely stop the run, right? I mean, like if you make that team pass, they're in trouble, and it becomes just like one target out there. But Georgia Southern, the run defense, they are 117th in success rate, 122nd in yards per run allowed when you omit sacks, 106th in EPA per rush, etc. So Sam Houston, even if Ducker is out, and even if we have the backup quarterback here, I still think they are going to be able to run on Georgia Southern. And then on the other side, you think, okay, well, Georgia Southern, can they light up that defense? Here's the issue. Clay Helton stinks in bowl games. And I told this story on the Thursday episode with Claudia that last year I once again decided, this is when Clay Helton was 1-5 against the spread in bowl games, got on a show like this. And I was like, I know he's 1-5 in bowl games and yada, yada, but I love the matchup this year. I'm going with Georgia Southern. They lost again. And so I talked to a buddy that day and I said, if next year during bowl season, if you hear me being on the Georgia Southern side or ever taking another Clay Helton team in bowl season, fly to my house, knock on the door, and slap me on the face when I open it. I will never bet on Clay Helton again in a bowl season. Clay Helton uses the bowls as practices for his younger players and development. And then when they get on the airplane or they get on the road to go to it, it's a reward. It's a vacation. It's a postseason thing. They don't really view it as part of the season. It's like I said, it's a reward. That's why he always loses these bowl games. And I think Sam Houston, though the kids will care a little bit more. Keeler, of course, out the door, but there's going to be some roster turnover there, and there's a bunch of players that will get opportunities depending on how many people opt out. I think that their grinded out vanilla offense is going to work in this one. And we always see mistakes from the Clay Helton offenses in the bowl games because guess what? Clay doesn't want to scout the tape for the opponent in this one. It's a reward for old Clay as well. So he doesn't really know the defensive personnel. So we're gonna take the points in that one. Gene, moving on to our next game. Now we have moved into Friday. We got a troika of games here. The first one, we'll get the playoff game. We'll knock that one out first. So we're going to talk about the one playoff game now. Next Saturday's show, that is when the other 3 first-round games will be going. We'll be hitting all those a week from now, same time, same place. But since we won't see you in the interim, thought we better hit the battle for Indiana. And Indiana traveling to South Bend on Friday night. Notre Dame is a 7.5-point favorite in this one. Gene, we don't get, fortunately, we don't have the opt-outs and what have you in the playoff games that we do in the regular bowl game. So we can more or less take this one straight up. Who do you like in this game?
So the thing I'm waiting for, and I haven't put this in officially as a bet yet because I want to see if more people just want to bandwagon Notre Dame. That's what I'm really trying to wait for. Like, can we get this number to keep getting higher and higher and higher? Get it up to like 8, 8.5, 9, please. I beg of you, all of you people who come out of the woodwork to root for Notre Dame because you think that like some nostalgia you have for a team that you never really had any reason to root for anyway. All that being said, I like Indiana in this game. I not only like Indiana, I think Indiana is a legitimate live dog in this game. I don't know how Notre Dame is ranked 7th. I don't know how anyone has had all of this conversation about strength of schedule and who they're playing and when they're playing them and how they're playing them. They talked all of this noise and then still put Notre Dame at 7. Who have they beaten that I'm like, oh my God, that team has a chance to win a national championship? Nobody. No one ever. I understand people are like, Indiana, well, they lost big time to Ohio State. Okay, cool. They stubbed their toe versus a team that's in the playoff. Cool. You want to know who Notre Dame stubbed their toe against? A team that is 7th in the MAC. That's who they stubbed their toe against. A team that is 7th, ladies and gentlemen, in the MAC. Now, does that mean that they're not going to be able to that they weren't able to right the ship? Well, clearly they did, right? They beat some good teams. They beat a really good Army team, in my opinion. They beat some teams that are good, but they haven't beaten anybody that has any shot to win a national championship. Indiana, you can say what you want about their schedule. Their schedule was better than Notre Dame's, in my opinion. And so, like, I look at this thing and I go, who'll be better prepared, right? Do I like Indiana and Cignetti over what they're doing at Notre Dame? The answer is yes. If you're going to give me over a touchdown to be able to prove that I'm right, then I'm taking it. But I'm also going to lay a little bit of money on the Indiana money line because that's going to bring back a really, really nice reward. And in these games, it is about win or go home. So if you think the underdog has a chance of winning, you need to put money on that underdog. And I think that Indiana has a great chance of winning. Number one, they won't be affected by the climate because they're in Indiana. Number two, they won't be affected by the atmosphere. They've been playing against Big Ten competition all year. Those stadiums look just like South Bend, full of people who are all rooting against them. They'll be fine. I think that this game will come down to quarterback execution. Do I trust Rourke or do I trust what's his name?
Riley Leonard.
It doesn't matter what his name is. You get my reference right there. I like it. Riley Leonard has done a really good job running the ball this year. Can he do a really good job throwing the ball? That is the question I have. I like Indiana and Rourke to throw the ball better than I like Riley and Notre Dame to do it. And for that reason, I am going with the Hoosiers.
The side of this one, man, is it close? As far as that handicap goes, my number is right on this thing. I'm at Notre Dame minus 7.3. It comes down to the run game of Notre Dame. Can they just totally control that thing? Are they going to be able to stampede Indiana? I think Indiana, they get the puncher's chance. They can do anything whatsoever to suppress Love. It's just that thing of just Love just galloping in the open field the whole time and doing his thing.
He's really good.
hurdling the defenders. The guy's a freaking pogo stick. I can't wait to see what his vert is when he goes in the NFL draft process. You don't see guys hurdle people like that. But because of that, I'm going to stay away from the side in this one. I do like a couple props, player props. I have to go with Jeremiah Love over 77.5. I mean, hello, Jeremiah Love, the past few games with the let's see. I mean, against USC, he only had 13 carries. He got to 99 yards. Against Army, he only had 7 carries. He got to 130. Virginia was the one before that, 16 for 137. Their game plan is going to be give him the ball. It just is what it is. So I think that is a pretty attractive price. I also like the over on Elijah Surratt, 53.5. If Indiana, of course, they're the underdog, 7.5 points, whatever, playing behind there, you're going to see the more passing in the second half. Elijah Surratt is their go-to guy, and Notre Dame has a really good pass defense, but of course, keep in mind that Benjamin Morrison is injured, and Surratt is a guy that Indiana can hit downfield. So at his number right now is 53.5. Those were a couple that I liked in that one. I was looking around Mitchell Evans too. By the time we get to kickoff, might have a couple more. And the thing that I wanted to mention to people, right now we're on Saturday. These games are going to be played in 6 days. And of course, I mentioned that we'll be back here 1 week from today, going over the next week of bowl games. But the other bets for us, we will be putting in throughout the week. So check on the bet tracker at FantasyLife. You pull the college football thing down to best bets, and then there's a toggle where you can pick the person and then see their pending bets and what have you. Gene and I will both be adding plenty of bets this week. So I'll probably have more player props in some of these games later this week right now. But those are my couple right now. And Gene, we got about 7 minutes. These last two, we're going to have to go quick. Let's just talk about them in tandem.
Okay.
The other two games on Friday, you have Ohio and Jacksonville State. Ohio favored by, we had 2.5 in the market right now. Let me see where we're at live on that one. Oh, 3.5 now. Ohio's gone up to 3.5. Wow. And then the other one that night is Tulane and Florida. That line's been moving. We got Florida minus 14 in that one. So give us your picks for those two games.
Well, Jacksonville State, I think it all really matters is Rich Rod. Is he finishing out the string? Is he going to coach in the bowl game, or is he already gone?
I do not believe so. I think he is.
So if he's gone, then I just think he's so impactful that I have to lean Ohio in that game. That's probably why the line is moving the way it is. Obviously in Florida, Tulane, Darian Mensah, gone to Duke. Don't ask me why his jump was, hey, I'm going to go from Tulane, which, by the way, a really underrated academic university, to Duke to play at Duke and do what? I guess the Duke bag must be better. But if I'm going to leave Tulane, which is set up for me to be successful, I'm going to leave that for LSU. I'm not leaving that for Duke unless unless I just want to go to Duke, right?
Right. On the Tulane's, it's Mensah and then also Kai Horton are both in the portal. So Ty Thompson, who was also in the portal, but the former 5-star recruit from Oregon, he is going to start this game and what he is calling an audition. So that's pretty interesting. I'm actually excited to see Ty Thompson because we've heard for years that he has ability, but it's like he can never get on the field. He couldn't even beat out Mensah for this job. So I'm interested in that. The other they have a starting defensive end out as well, Tulane in that game. And then Florida, it's more the injuries. They had a bunch of injuries at the end of the year. 3 cornerbacks, actually 4 cornerbacks and a safety. And then of course you had Graham Mertz, you had Trey Wilson from earlier this season. And then the Ohio Jacksonville State game. Both head coaches, of course, out the door because Tim Albin is as well.
That's right. Tim Albin out as well. My apologies. But I think in Florida's case, how much do they get back with this little time between their last game and right now? That'll be interesting to see. I just think this Florida team is trending in the right direction. And of all the teams who will be using a bowl game in order to set up their 2025, I think Florida will be doing it. What better way to do it than a statement game versus a Tulane team that we saw lay down versus Army? We just saw, and that's with Mensah. So I think Florida, I'm giving the 14 points. Ohio not having their guy, I forgot about it, versus Jacksonville State. That running attack from Jacksonville State is still pretty legit. I'd probably still lean Ohio, but not as much. I forgot about the coach leaving from Ohio as well. So that's how I would go with those two.
I'm going to lean towards Jacksonville State. I do think that's close. My system has it just slightly towards Jacksonville State, like just kind of flip, but beneath the key numbers there. But Jacksonville State, and sometimes with these bowl handicaps, like you have to be like a quack. You have to play the psychologist and do the the whole motivation thing. And sometimes you're wildly wrong, and it informs your handicap. And sometimes you can get it right, but there's something to it because we see this in bowl season every year. And I think, both these teams being out there coaching, and you just sort of wonder about it. On the Jacksonville State side, 2 games ago, they were in a game where they didn't head into it with motivation. And the other team came into it with all the motivation in the world. That was in the regular season finale when they played Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky needed to win that game to get into the conference title game. Jacksonville State was already locked into their spot. So you had the dueling motivations. Jacksonville State should have won that game. Western Kentucky hit a game-winning field goal at the gun to win by 2 points, set up the rematch the next week, and then Jacksonville State smoked them.
Smacked them.
Yeah, but like the whole point being, when they didn't have motivation before, Jacksonville State still came to play. It was an advantageous handicap for sure, but we haven't seen Ohio in a similar thing. They won the MAC, and then the next day, Albin did what he did. And if I'm the Ohio guys, I would be kind of rubbed the wrong way about that. Like, that was a roster of no names that Albin had sort of, rose up, and then Albin goes to Charlotte. And there's this idea that maybe in the future they have more resources there. But if I'm an Ohio kid, like we just won the MAC, and you're
piecing us out.
You're moving into Biff friggin' Pogge's office. What's going on? What's going on here? So for those reasons, I'm gonna lean towards Jacksonville State, and I love Huff. That Huff kid, he playing.
Yeah, Huff's been a baller. He's been a baller.
He is good, man.
Since Furman.
Yeah, sure. I'm a big fan of his. And then in the other game, I'm going to be against you on this one too, Gene. I like Tulane, and maybe Florida was one of those teams coming into bowl season where it was like a play on, sort of a thing for me because of the way that they played down the stretch. And I really like that. But with this line getting to 14, I just think that this is too many points. And yeah, I get that you're down to the third string quarterback, the backup quarterback, or wherever Thompson was on the thing or whatever. But you still have your running back. You still have what is a solid defense there for Tulane. My number on that game is 5.5. Like Tulane, really? Yeah, like, okay. And maybe I'm not accounting enough for the quarterback change. I put some in there. I think that game ends up a little bit closer than expected. Is where I'm at. I understand why people are on Florida, but this thing has gotten pushed all the way out to 14. Like I said, I just think it's too many points. Now, Ty Thompson, he might come out and conspire to, take our money in this one if he's just horrible, sort of an unknown there. But he's looked okay. I mean, when we've seen him in brief, small samples, and it's his audition. So I'm gonna be very curious to see that. All right, Gene, we got through all the games, and we're more or less out of time. But of course, I want you to give the people a quickly run through your other FCS games that we haven't touched on, and then your coach's corner play of the day.
Yeah, like we got a few more FCS playoff games today. Some interesting ones. We actually already touched on South Dakota and UC Davis, and like I said, I'm on UC Davis to get it done there. Yep. Some interesting lines. South Dakota State. And last time I checked, it was up to 21.5, 22 on that game. That seems to be a lot. 21.5. I would stay away from there. But what I will say is Incarnate Word can score, and South Dakota State can score. So I would definitely be on the over on that 54.5. It's up on the bet tracker. I've had it locked in for a while now. The blowout I see happening today is the bloom is off the rose with Mercer today as they travel to North Dakota State, and they've got to go to the Fargo Dome in order to play Like, that's just not going to be a recipe for success. I like North Dakota State to smoke Mercer today. I'm laying the 22.5. That's where it is right now. I think it ends up being a blowout. So those are my FCS plays. Montana State, I was all over Montana State. I thought it would go under. I didn't know Idaho was working for the enemy as well.
Yeah.
I think South Dakota State, that game goes over. They'll beat them. I don't know if they're going to beat them by 21.5. And while I'm saying that's a big line, I'm also willing to give the 22 points for North Dakota State because I think Mercer just might be over their skis today.
And Gene,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh yeah, your coach's corner for today.
Yeah, for my coach's corner today, I'm going back to the Army-Navy game.
Wow.
I think people...
The stimulus package returns.
I think people are underselling the stimulus package. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last God knows how many years, since 2007, 2008, 34-0, 17-3, 31-17, 27-21, 17-3, 34-7, 17-10, 21-17, 21-17, 14-13, 17-10, 31-7, 15-0, 17-13, 20-17, 17-11. What does that tell you? There's just not a lot of scoring going on in these games, right? Because these two teams know each other. They're both option type of teams that run through the quarterback. They both know each other. And so when Army and Navy get together, it is going to be a bloodbath. It is going to be a rock fight. There's not going to be a lot of scoring. And because of that, I'm leaning on that under 38.5. It's so low already. It's crazy, but I'm leaning on the under 38.5. Navy at Army. Army wins this, probably even by double digits, but it's going to be under 38.5. If I was to give out a correct score prediction, I would say this game ends up being 24 to 10 or 28 to 10, something like that. Really close, but the under stays under. Navy at Army under 38.5. You can put it on the board.
Yes. Mine is the Jaden Nixon under 61.5 rushing yards. I don't understand this line. He is a third string running back at this point, and it's a game that they're probably going to lose. The game script is going to go against Western Michigan here, and this line is more indicative of someone who should be an RB1. Again, like earlier this season, this line would have made sense. In this game, it doesn't make any sense. So if you had access to those two books I talked about, what was it, Caesars and FanDuel? I think it's out there on the Sleeper and the actually, I don't know about Sleeper, but Prize Picks and Underdog, it's not. But if you're on one of those books, that is a mistake line. He's the third string running back in a game where the game script is going to go against the run game for WMU. So we are under on Jaden. I am not a crook, Nixon. And with that, we have run out of time. Same time, same place next week. We will have our friend Eric Froton from NBC Sports back in the house for that one. Hope to have Mike Bainbridge back as well for some deep dive sicko DFS type stuff. But that's all the time we got for today. For my co-host, the coach, Gene Clemons, I've been Thor Nystrom. Let's go cash some tickets.